It's a great pleasure and an honor to be with you and share with you the thoughts on this very exciting movement that we have been engaged in to network the temples in North America. And I'm using the word movement because it's a very long process. It's going to go on for many years before the things that Bhayaji was talking about will actually materialize. So the movement started in 1998 under the guidance and the blessings of the Dharma Gurus at the Dharma Sansad in Arshvidya Gurukulam. And in that Dharma Sansad, one of the things that the Dharma Gurus said was, we need to bring the mandirs together if we want to bring the Hindu community, the Hindu Samaj together. And that mandir provides the nucleus to make that happen. And they asked Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America to take the lead in this. Swami Dayanand Saraswati has been our guide and mentor all along in this process. And along with him, many other dharmacharyas, dharma gurus, Swami Tejomayanand ji, Pranab Pandya ji, Shri Ravi Shankar ji, many others. From time to time, they've been guiding us in this journey over the last 10 years.
Thank you.
Another point to note is that the second generation of Hindus in America, they are here again. I'm saying it with caution because things are improving. Things are definitely improving. But still, a long way to go. Largely, the second generation is uninvolved in the issues of dharma. The other point to note is there is a very large percentage of non-Hindu Americans who are influenced by Hindu ideas like vegetarianism, Vedanta, yoga, meditation, spirituality. It's a huge movement. This number is close to 30 million in America. So they are, for all practical purposes, Hindu. Someday, we hope they will admit it, but for all practical purposes, they are there. It's a very large population. One other thing I wanted to share with you is a chart here. So this chart is plotting time versus the population. So when you look at it, it's got three curves, okay? One is in red, one is in green, one is in blue. So the blue is the sum of the two curves, graphs in red and green. So the green is the graph of the first generation Hindu population. The people who migrated in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, okay? So that population keeps growing and it'll keep growing. The other population in red, that is the population of the second generation Hindus. And that population, if you notice, it begins to asymptotically settle down. Not only that, it begins to decline a little bit. These are projected numbers. So the question is, why is the population of the second generation Hindus declining? And there are a couple of reasons that we all collectively need to think about. One of them is that many of our second generation Hindus, children, they are getting married outside the Hindu fold. And for some reason, when they get married outside of the Hindu fold, and this again is something that we need to worry about, we need to work on, when they get married to outside the Hindu fold, instead of embracing and bringing that other person into the fold, they sort of like drop off. So that population is decreasing. When our children get married, so one child is the norm, maybe two at the most. And anybody even with a little bit of population dynamics knowledge, right, knows, I mean, that's not sustainable. So the other thing that is happening, which is worth noting, is that the population of the elderly in America is increasing. It's kind of like opposite of what is happening in Bharat, right? So the almost 500,000 out of the 3 million, 3.2 million are people who are 65 and older. And that number is growing. It's growing, like in the next 5 years, it'll grow by another 150,000. So we need to take that into account when we are talking about the programs and the activities that we need to design. So why HMEC? There are 3 words, okay? One is, of course, Shraddha. And HMEC stands for Hindu Mandir Executive Conference. And when I use the word Hindu in here, I use the word Hindu in a civilizational sense. So the Hindu word represents our Sanskriti, our Sabhyata, right? So all the thoughts that have their roots in this soil of Bharat, sacred soil of Bharat, they all belong to us. They are all in this umbrella of the word Hindu. So that includes Bauddhas, that includes Jains, that includes Saivas, Vaishnavas, Sikhs, Smarata, Shaktas, all the things that Abhaya ji mentioned, right? It includes all of them. So it's not a narrow term that we are talking about. Okay, it's not a religious entity. We are talking about Hindu as a civilization. So it's the Shraddha that we are talking about. Shraddha in our coming generations. How do you cultivate that? How do you instill that? It's the legacy that we want to leave behind for our children, because if we want to sustain this beautiful civilization of ours, this culture of ours, what are the things that we need to do? What is it that our generation is going to leave behind as a base, as a foundation for our children to build upon? And that leads to networking. So you want to network our community together. Our Hindu civilization is built out of communities. We want to network these mandirs together. We are not talking about uniting them, because uniting them is a self-defeating purpose. There's so much of diversity. You're not talking about uniting, you're talking about bringing them together as a network, just like we have the internet. See, internet connects all the devices, mobile phone to laptops to big IBM machines to huge data centers, right? It all brings them together. Every entity has its own domain of control, and yet they can connect with each other. And once they connect with each other, many good things happen. They can share, they can communicate, they can collaborate. All kinds of good things happen because of that. So the analogy is close to internet. Okay, you want to network the mandirs together. And we have to do that if we want to nourish this banyan tree of Hindu Dharma. You have to engage the second generation. And mandirs are and the Hindu organizations are the way to do that. So some statistics. So when you look at the landscape in America, you have over 900 temples in just USA. There are over 200 temples in Canada. And there is a huge variety, there is a huge diversity, right? There are big temples, there are small temples, there are private temples, there are public temples, there are North Indian temples, there are South Indian temples, there are Sri Lankan temples, there are Gujarati temples. I mean, you name it. There is a huge diversity. And the purpose and the idea behind HMEC is that they are all ours. It doesn't matter if it's a small temple or a big temple or a Gujarati temple or a Sri Lankan temple, they are all ours. And we are going to embrace and bring them into this network altogether. That's the idea behind HMEC. So what do we do at HMEC? Very simple, 3 things. We want to bring the temple executives, the people associated with the temples, to this conference, just like we are doing over here in Hota, for one, sharing ideas. We can learn from each other. There's so much to learn from each other. So we want to share ideas, share thoughts, share experiences, share stories. We want to learn from each other, because each one of us brings something. I mean, each one of us has experimented with something. They have garnered a lot of experience with their prayogas, right? We want to learn from each other and grow collectively. And we want to do that to sustain our dharma, to pass it on to our second generation. That is the focus. So these are the three things that we do. So when you look at it, so I mean, these are just some pictures from there, and I'll go into a little more detail on this. When you look at the mandir, see, the mandirs traditionally were what we call the Jan Jagrana Kendras, right? Everything emanated from our temples. Everything emanated from our temples. So that is where we want our temples to get back to. So worship practices is one aspect of the mandirs. Education, imparting education to our children, to our priests, to our young parents, to our couples, to our families, is an important part of the temple program and activities. Culture, arts and culture, dance, music, whatever form, it all emanated from our mandirs. We need to get that back. And outreach, seva. Seva is a very important aspect that the mandirs used to perform, and they need to perform that again, and we need to bring that back. And of course, the important thing here is how do you administer and operate the mandirs. And when you look at the columns in here, so there are four pillars of the mandirs, of the temples. The executives, the management, the priests, the pandits, the purohits, acharyas, the parents, and the children, of course. And all of these four entities have to work collaboratively, collectively, to make this mandir a vibrant mandir. So our journey started in 2006 with Atlanta, and since then we've traveled all over the United States. We've had this conference for like in nine different places. The last one was in Florida in September of this year, and the next year it's going to be in Trinidad. The one previous to that was in Toronto, Canada. So we're trying to cover some of the neighboring countries too. So what is the value that it's bringing to the temples? Networking, of course, temple operations management services, training projects, Hindu social awareness programs, community service programs. Here are some of the things that came out of HMEC over the last 9 years. So several publications. These may look simple for folks in India, but Antyeshti Sanskar, it's a very important thing, because over there, priests are not available everywhere. And when somebody dies in a remote area, people don't even know how to perform the Antyeshti Sanskar. They want to. So we wrote a book, very simple book, in simple English, to make that possible for them to perform it themselves. A prayer book for the hospitals, the caregivers, a Vivaha Sanskar, simple publication. Mandir Vani started a newsletter for the temples and a yearly publication. A youth network came out of HMEC. A Bal Vihar network, tying all the Bal Vihars across all the temples together into one network, came out of the Hindu Mandir Executive Conference. Sanatan Dharma Scholarship, another idea, came out of Hindu Mandir Executive Conference. So now this is a yearly thing. I think this is the 4th year when we offer scholarship to our children. National Seva Divas. All the temples in the very first conference, they agreed that they're going to perform collectively a seva of any nature, any form, on October the 2nd. And they are doing that. So one they picked was blood donation and bone marrow drive. So it's been going on for the last 7 years. Priest conference, another important thing that came out of HMEC. So we thought that we have to have a separate conference just for our priests and to look after their welfare, their educational program, their continuing education programs. This has been going on for the last 3 years. The next one is in Minnesota. next year. Havan, Hindu American Vanaprasthi Network. I told you, like 500,000 Vanaprasthis today in America. Very resourceful, very knowledgeable, very wise. Can we bring them together into a powerful network? They can make wonders happen. Hindu Women's Network. We have all kinds of women's network, but none that gives a voice to our mother, to our sister on Hindu issues. How do they want to see our children grow? What are their ideas about what our young couples should be doing, should not be doing, and how they should be brought up, and the things that they need to learn? This is the forum for them. We've had several conferences, and next year we're going to have another national conference on this. Hindu Chaplaincy Program, another important program that came out of HMEC. So our pandits, our priests, they are very well versed in how to perform the pujas, right, and the karmakand. They are, unfortunately today, the situation is that they are not very conversant with the language. They know tons of stories from our shastras. They're not able to convey to the second generation. That's a very important point there, right? So this program is designed to fill that gap. It's not designed to replace the priests. It's designed to supplement them, to complement them in areas where they do not have expertise. So working in hospitals, working in nursing homes, working in the military, working with our community, wherever these kinds of services are needed, we've started this program. It's launched by Hindu University of America, and starting next year, will be the first few students going through this program. This is a chart, I'll skip this. Everything happens. We'll make the puzzle fit. I just want to leave you with one thought. 200 years from now, if the history of America is going to be written, what do we want the people, what do we want the historians to write in that history book? 200 years from now. See, the Chinese came as the Param Pujya Dalai Lama ji was saying, right? Chinese came, they gave Chinatown, they gave Chinese food. The Italians came, they gave pasta, they gave pizza. The Irish people came, they gave them pub. What will they say about the Hindus that came to the Americas in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s? What do we want them to say? That the Hindus came and they brought with them samosa? They brought with them curry? They brought with them bhangra? They brought with them garba? Is that what we want the history books to write 200 years from now? Our vision, our view is no. What we want them to write 200 years from now is, many people came to this land. But these people who came from the land of Bharat, they were special. They brought with them their family values, their family structure. They brought with them a value system. And they brought with them a spiritual lifestyle that transformed this land. And this land is today because of those people who came from the land of India. That is the history that we want to create 200 years from now. Namaste.